Testing, testing. Okay, the audio is live. And now... the video is live.
I'm not as well outlined as I'd hoped. Got to get closer. But now I need something to prop this on. Got something to prop this on.
This isn't the shot that I want. That isn't the shot that I want.
No, I still can't get the other side of my head. Why? Why are we stuck? Very interesting how only half of me is talking like a pirate.
So you're talking like a pirate out of one side of your mouth.
Yeah. It was doing so much better yesterday. It had a very easy time being able to distinguish where my head ended and where the rest of the world was. Oh well.
Do you have your curtain behind you?
No, I'm pit sitting, so I've got a virtual background.
Can you keep that accent up for the whole show?
Can do. Absolutely.
All right.
I decided my pirate is going to be Scottish. I am, however, going to run the mic down under my shirt so that you guys don't see the tape.
What can I do to make this shot work? Probably nothing. Nothing at this point, anyway.
That should do. Let me know if you hear anything rustling on it, on the mic.
I do when you're fidgeting with it, but I didn't before.
I taped it to me. That way, it'll stay put.
Oh, there we go. Now the shot works. I don't know why it didn't work before.
I'm mostly a pirate, but mostly also not. I wonder what will happen if I take down my hair.
It was Talk Like a Pirate Day, what, yesterday?
Yesterday, yeah.
All I can do is arg.
But in the true spirit of the way Jews do their holidays, where we get 2 for the price of 1 day, just because it had to be the 1 day in Israel, but we needed 2 days here to account for time zones, we can do Talk Like a Pirate Day for 2 days.
And why not? We can do whatever we want. So Sarah is going to join us by
with us.
Telephonic communication.
Yeah, I am here.
She's here. Aha.
I am here as a disembodied voice, which we all know occasionally happens.
I like a good disembodied voice.
I would say the voice of God, but we are a non-religious podcast.
Whatever we want to be. I mean, I can do voice of God.
I really believe God could be a woman.
Sure.
Or a man. Or God could lack
There's
sex
several
organs.
songs about this.
Or God could lack sex organs.
I think that's generally the accepted. God is non-corporeal and therefore not subject to human binaries.
Yeah. To me, God lacks sex organs, because if God had sex organs, they wouldn't need to shape a lump of clay into a man and then make a rib into a woman. They do it the more fun way.
Are we live yet, or am I late?
The entire world is hearing us now.
Okay, good.
But I'm doing the technical thing. I'm trying to figure out, because as much as it's fine to have your name show up, because you're only going to be sound, I'd rather not.
Well, you can usually hide non-video participants.
Yeah, I can do that, but I'm doing something called
Guess what, attendees? You get a bit of behind the scenes right now.
Okay, if I spotlight you, probably that's going to stick. Sarah, say something. See if
it should stay on Jen now.
There, yeah. Okay, Jen, you are spotlighted.
With my pirate ship, the good ship Jolly Roger.
All right. So we're in the pre-show.
That name has been a bit, loose and not used for a while. So I figure it's in the public domain. It's time it got reborn. I like my big ship. It's got many sails. Seems like the kind of thing a Jolly Roger would be.
Duck yourself a little bit out of the. Yeah. So
I can do this.
Folks can see it.
There's the whole Jolly Roger. There you go.
All right.
It's a nice galleon.
That's
cost me a pretty penny. I spent my entire salary from being on this podcast on that ship.
You don't make any money on this podcast.
I know. Ship was
Is that
free.
her entire salary?
Ship was free.
Ship was free. Thanks to the amazing photography of a lovely folk on the internet. They took a picture. I used it.
And Jen, you've been doing such a wonderful job on this show. We actually decided to give you a 100% raise.
Yeah, we're doubling.
Double free.
Yeah, doubling your salary.
Twice the cost is twice as nice, yeah.
So people can see this until somebody takes us down. And,
Are we skirting copyright issues here?
not now, but potentially sometime during the show could happen. So we'll talk. Tell you what, we'll talk more about being taken down during the boilerplate.
I mean, we could have a nice debate about whether intellectual property rights are real or just a figment of our imagination. But that seems like a rabbit hole for a different day.
They can be a figment of your imagination until Warner Music Group pushes a button and says, "Thou shalt not be on YouTube or Facebook Live."
Well, then it's just forced backed. It's still a figment.
Okay.
It's like fiat money, as long as we believe in it.
I believe that we can be on and use material in fair use as much as we want, and yet we're still not on Facebook from last week. We are back on YouTube. And I had to spend a day doing the not a whole day. Okay, an hour, 2 hours doing the dispute thing. But we'll talk about that during the boilerplate. I've segmented things out. Here in yet still the pre-show, my question is, Jen, is this still false fall because it's almost October and it's gorgeous out?
No, we had the hot back for a little bit, and it was the
No,
last. It was the extinction spike of summer, and now we're real fall.
We didn't hit. Well, first of all, it's still September, and fall shouldn't start until October, but it seemed to start early. We didn't really have. We didn't have a week of 90s. We had a day of 80s. It's been like in the 60s.
Mm-hmm. So I'm wearing long sleeves. My computer can't quite yet handle virtual backgrounds as well as I'd like.
It's not doing too bad. It's doing as well as just about everybody else on Zoom.
Fair. Some people have great lighting setups. It handles it so nicely.
Okay.
I don't.
So this is really real fall.
This is real fall.
Because we could still have another week of 90s. Could still happen.
Oh, we could. That's false summer.
No. It's not fall for another 2 days. We have 2 more days of pretend summer.
2 more days of false fall, and then it becomes real fall.
Yes.
I just prefer to think of this fall as being an overachiever. It was raised by military folks who very strongly believe that to be early is to be on time, and to be on time is to be late.
All I know is that I was out riding my bike for 13 miles today, and it was gorgeous. And
I sat in a hammock and read.
And you can look outside the window of the studio in the bonus room above the garage foot of Mount Belzoni and see that it is gorgeous out there. So, lastly, two more things before we can actually do the show. Jay for president. You claim
I missed some paperwork.
You claim that you are registered for president. Didn't happen.
I saw
Didn't
you
happen,
looked me
did
up. I realized I missed a paperwork deadline. Apparently that kills it.
I guess because
You got to make sure you stay on top of that. Filing deadlines are no joke. They will send you to jail.
there there are a couple of sites that I found that list everybody who has registered for president. Actually, this one isn't the best one. I think this one is better. This is the Federal Election Commission. This is the feds. These are the real people. And there are 1,202 people who filed.
Oh, that's not the right number.
Yeah, well, that's what they're saying.
That wasn't even the right number. Like when Kanye got into it, it was bigger than that. I guess they kicked those of us off who didn't quite do our paperwork right.
Well, it says election year 2020, office, president, and that's all the filtering I've done. So that really should be everybody. And I can do some searches. It was J for president, right?
No, I registered under my correct name.
Oh. So there are a bunch of Jennifers. Let's put 100 people on this page, but there's only 5 Jennifers. And none of them are you.
I do know that I missed some paperwork at one point because we didn't have any money. So I didn't know what to do with filing the paper about how much money I got since there wasn't any.
Let's see how many Trumps there are. Why? Oh, yeah, I got Jennifer and Trump. I need to learn how to do computers, I guess. Only one Trump. Donald J. Office, president. Interestingly, they will show people who have filed for president in previous years. If we look up Biden, we will see that he, we can get rid of Trump. Yeah, let's definitely get rid of Trump. He filed in 1987. That's first filing date, I guess. He's been doing this for a while now. Okay, so I was pretty excited about telling people that I had someone on the show who was running for president, but I have to stop that.
Well, I was running for president.
Well, you were trying.
Former candidates.
Yeah.
I did it for the reason I did, and it served its purpose. But here we are 4 years later, don't much need me anymore. You've got Kanye.
Is he on there? Let's find.
If Kanye is not on that list, then that list is definitely not accurate. Because at the time Kanye filed, I believe the number was 1,030 something.
How do you spell his name?
Kanyewest.
We could just, all we need is the Conway part. Goodbye, Biden. Yeah, he's there. Well, we've got West, Kanye. We have Fish, gay Kanye West. And we have West, Kanye D's nuts.
See, I'm telling you, it's
they're running
not a terribly big barrier to file.
I think they're running on a unity platform.
Which one?
Oh, so
all
the
of the various
Communist Party
Kanyes.
and the Green Party.
Yeah, the Fish, gay Kanye West is running in the Communist Party, and the West, Kanye D's nuts is in the Green Party. The real Kanye West has not declared a party.
No.
Well, he's an independent, but apparently his supporters there, or his aliases, are at least left leaning.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, filing to be president is not terribly big of a financial barrier if you're middle class. It's just the question of whether or not you'll give up Starbucks for a month.
It was what, $2,000?
Yeah, not much.
You spend a lot of money at Starbucks.
And I say that from a position of privilege, but what I mean is it's not much given the absolute magnitude of the job you're filing for.
Right.
That's more than my food budget in a month. That's more than my housing budget in a month. That is a lot of money, but it's not much given what the position is.
And people kept asking me as I was telling them that I knew a candidate for president, don't you have to get like signatures and stuff?
To get ballot access, yes.
Yeah, that's different though.
Yeah,
so you can file with the FEC, and that's different from gaining ballot access. So there's only 3 candidates who have ballot access in all 50 states.
And that is Trump, Biden, and your girl Joe.
Yep.
different.
I mean,
Joe.
and the ballot access requirements are they really vary widely by state, and some states are incredibly strict. And like in North Carolina, only in 2017 we passed a law that dropped the ballot access requirements from it used to be you had to maintain 2% of the registered voting population had to be affiliated with your party, or your candidate had to maintain 2% in a statewide election. Now it's dropped down to 0.25%, and we have 2 additional parties on the ballot because of that. But then
that's how the Green Party got there.
The Greens and the Constitution Party.
Or as I call them, the Constipation Party.
But then you have states like Virginia. Virginia requires, for automatic access, they require 10% in a statewide election, or 10,000 signatures have to be collected from verified registered voters across the state. So a lot of money goes towards that before it can really go to any candidates.
Can't buy your way in?
Only if you do so within a party. That's the issue, is that the party has to have ballot access within the state. So you can buy your way into a party, but you can't buy a party into ballot access, unfortunately.
All right.
You can pay for signatures, though.
And all this time I've been giving mine away for free. Hold up.
Well, no, but you have signature collectors are the ones who get paid to go out and ask people for, will you support the ballot access for this candidate? And oh my goodness, if you ever want to find a way to build your resilience to rejection, that's a great way to do it.
So it's not like getting followers on Twitter where you can literally buy them.
And I'd like to say, as somebody who does sign them, because I do believe that choice is important. It's very important, listeners, to know that when you sign to get ballot access for a candidate, you're not agreeing to support the candidate.
Correct.
You're agreeing to have them appear so that you can vote for the bloke you were going to vote for anyway. But you're giving them a chance to appear. And that's the way that it really should be. We shouldn't be gatekeeping here.
If
it were up to me, over all the 1,000+ Kanye D's nuts candidates that are running for president, you would have on your ballot. And you can really pick who you think is the best out of the lot of them. I don't like gatekeepers. I'm a much bigger fan of direct democracy. I will keep this up the entire show.
Well, we do thank you for your support. And I have to say, this year I had more people than I've ever before when I was helping collect ballot signatures who would just directly say, actually, I don't think we need more choice this year. So, you know, it's good to hear that that still exists in the world.
We decided on last week's show that people on Facebook can't see that this is not that unusual a year. Trump is not that strange. I've reverted back to my position that I think this is a very bizarre year, and it's a terrible year to have. I
mean, it's a bizarre year, but politically not so much.
Yeah, I know. I still think it is. But then we tend to think that about the way things are now, and our view of history is not all that great. Can you say? I don't know if that's an Irish or a Scottish accent. I need to hear one thing. Captain, I'm giving all I can.
Captain, I'm giving it all I can. I don't know what accent I'm doing. Honestly, don't.
You have a purpose for this?
It's Talk Like a Pirate Day, ma'am.
I was wondering if I missed something.
Are vaguely Britannia. Vaguely.
Well, I was going to say, why exactly did you select this nationality for your pirates? Because pirates are quite
because I can't
transnational.
Speak French. French is straight out, and I'm no good at Somali accents.
I was going to say, can you do Somali?
I can't, though. So I picked this one because this is the only one I got in my wheelhouse.
Well, and does this only apply to our traditional idea of like high seas in a ship pirates? Or are we also going to include, digital pirates and things like that? Because we can go very 21st century with this. There you go.
I can't do Russian, so I've gone with high seas pirate, and I've gone with vaguely somewhere in the British Isles because I go there often enough, and I've heard this one said by somebody, I think maybe Cornwall. So I've opted for this because this is the one I can do. We call this the accent of convenience for Talk Like a Pirate Day.
One more thing in the pre-show before we start the show. We could get to a half hour before we actually start the show. I think, the only podcast that accomplishes that feat, that can go for most of the show before the show actually begins.
Oh, no. It's not unique to us at all. I've been on several podcasts that spend half an hour before they actually get into their damn podcast.
Are you frustrated by that, or do you like it?
know. I really think it just depends on whether or not your viewers and your listeners like it is really what matters.
Well, since we don't have
Oftentimes, though, it's like a Patreon extra. You get the before and the after show.
Yeah. Since we don't have any viewers or listeners to speak of, I guess we just do it because we like. Okay, Jen, this is just here to make you feel comfortable and possibly get us taken down. In theory, this is EDM. Did I get it right?
You did?
Okay, because you were saying that EDM was your music.
EDM is my jam, that's right.
I think as long as we play less than 15 seconds of it, then you should be okay.
That is not true. It's a fair use myth. And to prove it, I'll play more than 15 seconds, but then we'll get taken down anyway. So what I'm hearing here is, first of all, there's the beat. The beat. There's a beat.
And the drop.
Here comes the beat.
And the drop.
What's the drop?
That's where the beat changes.
Okay, so that's
where you get the build up and the higher pitch, and then you get that big loud beat drop.
Yep. It takes a pause, and then it drops way, way down.
Okay, so that's what just happened there a moment ago. And I just noticed I've got Jen's little picture floating around here, and I'll put that on a different screen.
Now bring her in, let her dance.
Oh, sure. Here you go.
Well, there's nothing to dance to now. It's the slow trancey bit.
Okay, so this is the trancey part.
Yep, it usually goes like slowly trancey. It lets you gather your reserves, and then you hold still, and then it drops, and you go woo, and just start really dancing.
So that was the drop again there.
So what we're hearing is that Jen uses EDM music to experience her full range of emotions.
Okay.
I like EDM. It speaks to me in ways that it probably doesn't speak to others, but I got into it. I must have been 17. No, I was in high school. So yeah, 17, 16. And I heard experimental synth music that was being put out by, I've switched accents altogether. Experimental synth music that was being put out by a lab that was dealing with AI to see if AI could compose music. And I absolutely adored what the AI was able to come up with. And I started, because it was given a bunch of like little digital musical samples, and it put together this gorgeous.
Here comes the drop. There's the drop.
That's the drop. You can tell because it starts.
I'm getting this thing. You realize I'm almost 71 years old, and I'm just getting this thing.
It's high energy. I like it because I spent half my childhood growing up in Europe. Very reminiscent of clubs there, discos there. Which don't have the age limits that the clubs in the US do. So you can go, you just can't drink alcohol. You can go and you can dance. And it is, it's aerobics. And it's fun aerobics done with other people without an instructor telling you how to move your feet and what to do. And everybody's happy with you just flailing around like a really excited ferret. And it's just a good workout. It's a good time.
So I only see that club thing on TV or maybe in a movie. And it's where people are packed in like sardines, which they can't do now, or at least they're not supposed to. And they're just throw your hands in the air like you just don't care.
You're wildly flopping about.
Embrace your inner toddler.
Yep.
Okay.
Dance like nobody ever made you feel bad about how you dance.
I have to say, by comparison, dancing in, say, a club in the United States, it's a bit more performance-based, and you have to look like you ever attended a dance class. And, people are doing a really quick little, what we like to call the white boy sway. Nobody's really exuberantly into the music. I much prefer an environment where vulnerability and experimentation are encouraged.
Well, it sounds like they've got more MDMA in these European clubs then.
MDMA?
I mean, if we're talking Switzerland, they got a lot more than MDMA, but
that goes a long way towards getting a good into the music vulnerable space.
That is a drug?
Yes, it's ecstasy.
It's not mixed martial arts.
No, MDMA.
Okay.
But no, it's even without the drugs, though, it's been culturally considered like an acceptable thing to do is to make a fool of yourself. So here in the U.S., making a fool of yourself is one of the high crimes and misdemeanors you can be removed from presidency for.
Really?
No, but it acts like, the way we act like that is.
Because I've never been in one. Doesn't really appeal to me, but like I say, I see them on TV, and it looks like everybody's just going nuts.
You really do. You are encouraged to move your body as the music speaks to you and requests of your body that you move your body that way, and nobody's going to judge you.
Now, are you doing this with a partner or solo or both?
No, you don't need a partner. It's not simulated sex like the U.S. clubs are. You go in to just have a good time with music and motion. You explore what your body can do in a three-dimensional space to music. Reminds me a lot of my elementary school dance classes, where they encouraged us to explore like high, medium, and low space and just move our bodies, see what our bodies could do.
This is interesting. I've totally forgotten what the real Jen sounds like. This is I'm buying the accent. Okay, I have run out of things for the pre-show. Do you guys have anything you want to do to get us to a half hour before the put the countdown up? We're in the pre-show. No.
I'm all good.
Okay, that means it's time to play our music, which is neither. The thing about EDM, the letters EDM. Well, what the E is electronic, right?
Dance music.
Yeah. So the electronic part means there are no acoustic instruments. There
are no instruments. Yeah.
No instruments. It's all synth.
It's all synthesized samples. Yeah.
Okay. So, because you could play all that stuff on.
You could. Some of it goes a little bit fast for what even the most accomplished musician can do, but in some of the songs. But yeah, you could play, and that's where almost all of them came from originally, were sound samples that were run through autotune. They're from an instrument originally, but now they've been looped onto a computer in a computer program that built it out like you built out a PowerPoint presentation. And
the people listening, they don't care.
No, we're not there for the show. We're not watching some rock stars and gently swaying. We're there to have our own personal interactions with the music.
And this is not played.
You're there for the experience.
Not played by a band. It's a DJ.
It is a DJ. Some DJs will put themselves on a stage with little wild lights and whatever, but most people don't care. You're not there for the DJ. You're there to have your own introspective personal experience.
And
in a place where this is acceptable, it's the norm.
And
everybody's doing it.
The DJ's contribution are A, to pick the set, and B, to transition from one to the other so seamlessly that you can't tell you've transitioned from one to the other.
That's correct.
Yeah, he manages the experience itself, manages to, get you a good flow, manage the highs and lows, so that you're not, you can't just be having high energy music for 20 minutes straight. You're gonna have people passing out on the dance floor.
That's right. I was gonna say the DJ's a bit like a personal trainer. He's managing everybody's energy levels, making sure you get your heart rate down. I know there's Orange Theory athletic clubs in the US, which are basically EDM DJs, except they're getting paid a little bit less to do the same work. You build the heart rate up with an activity, and then you lower the heart rate, and then you build the heart rate back up. You remind people to drink water. So that's about what the DJ does.
So it is an aerobics class.
Very important to drink water.
It is very much an aerobics class, yes.
And you stay fit. You're getting...
Yes. How many fat people do you see in European discos? Not many.
I don't see anybody, but... So I was going to say that it is easy to make a transition from one song to another so seamlessly you can't tell because they all sound the same. But apparently...
They do have a lot of 4 on the floor dance beats, yes. But sometimes they don't.
Boomer. Can you pick when you're dancing to one of these, can you say that is X, Y, that is some performer? Do performers count?
Maybe not the first count, but I can pick out Darude's Sandstorm, which is a pretty famous one. And I can also pick out Marshmello and Dead Mouse, some of their songs.
Okay, so there are performers behind these.
Yes.
Even though they're not playing
somebody
anything.
has to sculpt the sounds into the experience. And each EDM artist, and I'm not calling them a musician, I'm calling them an artist here because I do think it is sculpting in sound. Each one does have their own, special, unique signature.
And are these created in, say, a 4-minute or 6-minute or whatever sound? Are they created in the 4 to 6 minutes?
No.
Live, playing on a keyboard of some kind?
No.
It's like what I do.
Months and months and months ahead of time.
Slaving for hours over a hot Pro Tools.
Yes.
Okay. I want to go see the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or the Eagles.
It's a different kind of musical experience, that one. Because there you're going to see somebody give you, performance art. Whereas the, EDM is more about experiential art. Does anybody listen to this just, by themselves, driving in the car? I do sometimes when I've had a bad day and I need to pick me up.
You have people who just it's their preferred ambient music. It's music that often doesn't have lyrics or doesn't have lyrics that are distracting enough to follow. So, it's good to have on in the background sometimes while you're studying.
Because I was hearing some people sing.
Yeah, there's occasional singing, but I'll put it on in the car if I've had a particularly down day and I don't get a moment to just sort of rest, but I need to keep my energy up. I'll put it on in the car as I'm transitioning from one activity to another, just so that when I come out at the other end, I'm like, yeah, ready to roll.
Would that help us get people to vote?
I don't know. People, musical tastes are personal.
All right. We made it to a half hour before we started the show. You guys are both millennials, right? Smack in the middle of millennial.
Yes.
I am the oldest
Elder
millennial there is.
Okay.
So you're cover both ends of the spectrum.
Okay. Because I've got a millennial message embedded in the show music, which begins now. From the studio, in the bonus room, above the garage, on the north side of Cary, at the foot of Mount Belzoni. Where did my hammer go? I lost my hammer. This is the Triangle Talk Show.
This is a combo where I talk and you shut up and wear your mask.
And that's it. That's the millennial message. I need to push. There we go. I'm Gary Pierce, and
from my pirate galleon off the coast of North Carolina, sequestered near no mountains at all, because that's the point of a coastal plain, I'm Jen, host of Nannycast.
Sarah, do you have a rap while you're driving?
Absolutely. I am from my secret hideaway towards the coast of Carolina. I am Sarah Wagner, your token libertarian.
We still have music. Going. Oh, because Brendan's not here, so no Brendan on the show today.
He's greatly missed.
Together we are the best team of podcasters in North Carolina, and maybe the Southeast.
Maybe the world.
Maybe.
I don't know.
The
it's
world.
All subjective.
Yeah.
I like to think we're not, but maybe there's a chance.
I stick that in there just because worthless blowhard promotion seems to be a thing, and I need to do it now and then. Apparently, supposed to.
We have to show some level of self-confidence, right?
That's right. We've got this. And today is episode 112. Got that right? Yes, 112. It's a timing episode, which I guess that figures into the. Oh, and damn, I left the Sunday thing on there again. Keep forgetting to make that go away. That figures into the EDM because of timing. It's all timing, right? And because of the politics. Episode 112, September 20th, 2020, Notorious P.O.D. Yes.
May her memory be a blessing.
She will be remembered, yes.
Yeah. Our title is a tribute to RGB, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The Notorious P.O.D. is because podcast. Talk about her a little bit, I guess. Boilerplate wise, now I'm not expecting Jen, and I'm not expecting you, Nora, Sarah, to do any boilerplate.
Because he doesn't like it when I do.
No, Jen, you can. Sarah, you're driving, right?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're not. Have you got
I'm
the
just
show
not
notes?
home.
Have you got the show
I do
notes
have
up?
the show notes.
Well, you started it last time. Jen's turn this time. The Triangle Talk Show is
A podcast, period. We're a podcast. That's
Period.
what we are. There's more in the show notes. I refuse to read it. We're a podcast. You can see us on video, like I'm a beautiful galleon behind me on video, but that doesn't make us not a podcast.
You turned us in to Warner Music Group, didn't you? To get us to get us only being a podcast.
No, there are people who enjoy that. I am not one of them, but it always seems to happen around me, and people think I'm the one who does it just because I know the rules that you're breaking.
In episode 111, which is the previous episode to this one, I found the hammer. In episode 111, we reviewed some music related to the pandemic. We joked, mostly I joked, that we might get a takedown or at least get monetized, even though we claim fair use for everything we used. I need another one of these here. I need one that says fair use, fair use, fair use.
That doesn't actually make it fair use, though.
Well,
Lawyers are not confused.
Oh, but if you believe in anything hard enough.
Yeah.
Just clap your hands and Tinkerbell will fly.
So just think we are getting into Tinkerbell territory. We joked that we might get a takedown or at least get monetized, even though we claim fair use for everything that we used. We did get monetized up the wazoo for all of that music except WMG. I believe that's Warner Music Group. They went for the jugular. They went for the takedown on YouTube and on Facebook, and the episode disappeared. I did a show that was a rant about this midweek. I didn't even call it an episode. I did file disputes on both, and although I've been saying, and even, I think I even said this in the promo for this show, that we did not exist on YouTube or Facebook at this point for that episode, they did restore it on YouTube after a day or so. I just missed the fact that it was restored. It is temporary. They're just taking my word for it. This has happened on shows in the past that have been taken down. I would just file a dispute, and YouTube would put them back up until the dispute was resolved. So it is back up now. It just didn't happen instantly. And we are still missing from Facebook as far as I can tell. Warner Music Group has until, I think, Tuesday to respond. They have not responded yet. So the Facebook one may come back up.
Well, we wish you luck.
Yeah. I have won half a dozen of these, and I've never lost. I have a pretty good idea what fair use is. I don't file disputes for things that don't qualify for fair use. I use things that don't qualify for fair use, and if I get caught, then I just say, okay. Mostly these days on YouTube, most content owners go the monetize route. They'll stick a commercial in front of your show, and they'll collect the money, and then they prohibit you from monetizing the show. And even though I could do a 2-hour show and I use 30 seconds of music, they get the whole thing. However, I can't monetize the show anyway until we get to 4,000 viewers, subscribers. I think that's the cutoff for monetizing. So I don't even try. Facebook doesn't have such a thing. Facebook doesn't have the ability to monetize your video. So all of the music, we play like 6 pieces of music in last week's show. All of those folks went for the monetize except for WMG, and they didn't bother with Facebook because there's nothing they could do. WMG, Warner Music Group, went for the takedown. So that's the way that worked.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that the two comparisons of those methods. One just kind of restricts the entire content, so you don't get any access to it. So you don't even get extra exposure for those artists, but you can still have the podcast that you've created, and the original owners of the music can still get paid if you do it through the monetization route. So I don't know. I just kind of want to high five YouTube for figuring out a nice, well-rounded solution to that still allows everybody's content to be heard.
Yeah, most of the time that seems to be working. Full disclosure, there is one more option within YouTube, and that is to just snip out. They will snip out the offending material and let the rest of the show go on. So there, when you got the 30 seconds worth or whatever, actually what we used was typically 40 seconds to maybe a minute. If you do that, and you are guilty, you don't have a fair use claim, you can get your show back minus that piece. I chose not to use that option because I believed everything we did was really legitimately fair use. So we'll see. Like I say, I've made these disputes at least a half a dozen times between this show and the previous show, the ham radio show, and I won every time. Carved another notch in my belt. So
we will have faith in your experience, Gary.
Yeah, sometimes I got the response back that said the producer agrees with you, which they should because I was right. And sometimes they're given a certain amount of time to respond, and sometimes they just go away, tail between their legs, and no apology, no nothing, just you get back up because they don't dispute it anymore. Only once has my dispute been rejected, and that was by the BBC. And I filed a counterclaim to their rejection, which is the next step that you can do. And YouTube piles on the worry. They pile on the concern. If you file against this dispute, you may get a copyright strike, and you may lose your ability to put things on YouTube, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I did it anyway. I'm a badass. I'm a YouTube badass. And
snorted so much, I
and at that point, the BBC went away. They let the time expire. They didn't respond. So there we go. Maybe we are still a video show, but we identify as a podcast. There is an audio-only version. And by the way, what the hell is a pod? Jen, you're all this in favor of pod. What's a pod?
I don't know. I know it's on demand. I don't know what the P stands for.
It's not an acronym.
It came from iPod.
Yeah.
No, iPods were after.
No.
Because I was listening to podcasts on MP3 players long before the iPod even came on the market.
But did they call them podcasts?
Yeah, I think at that point they
yes.
just called them web radio shows.
But no, those were live. Pods were on demand. That was the thing. You downloaded it and you could listen to it on demand. Apple is very good at this, where they take something that's been in existence for a while and then they try and convince you they invented it, like the smartphone.
Oh yeah, Apple doesn't actually come up with any new ideas on their own.
Yeah,
they
Nokia
just market
was doing
things real well.
smartphones in Europe for damn near a decade before the iPhone. Yeah, and the iPods were also, they weren't the first MP3 player. I had at least two before that.
So I'm doing a Google
anybody
here.
Remember the Zune? Let's all have a moment of silence for the Zune.
You know, the Zune was actually not that bad. It's pretty darn good.
That's why we have a moment of silence out of respect for the lost technology.
It came up in a movie. Oh, I think it came up. Yeah, it came up in, I think it was Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2. Are you guys Guardians of the Galaxy fans?
Absolutely. I like a Groot.
Do you remember the part where he had his Walkman smashed by a bad guy, and he got something new, and someone said this was the latest thing. It's a Zune.
I do. I didn't ever have a Zune. I was too cheap for that. But I'm now looking up to see the etymology of the name podcast.
Well, I started to type, why is a podcast called, and Google filled in because somebody else has been looking for this. Why is it called a podcast? The first thing, Wikipedia, podcast is a portmanteau. Am I pronouncing that right? Portmanteau?
Portmanteau.
Okay, portmanteau. A combination of iPod and broadcast. Okay, so that's
iPods, the iPods
wiki.
came later. We were calling it that before that.
Okay. Everybody else doesn't know that.
No, because there were only like 3 of us in 2001 who were doing it. I can't even remember what the show was, but there was a show that I was subscribed to.
Everybody here is saying, and by everybody, I'm talking about Wikipedia and whatever this is that I'm calling, that I'm Podcast
So
Hero.
I have a Mac, and I keep trying to search for etymology of podcast, and every time I type it, what it wants to do is open iTunes for me. This is the 3rd time.
According to Podcast Hero, the word is derived from a combination of 2 words, iPod and broadcast. Now, it's before the iPhone, no question about that.
Yes, but stop it. Stop it, Apple.
He wants to start iTunes.
Constantly.
Well, Jen is trying to figure out what a pod is.
No, it's the P. Because there's a reason that the iPod was called an iPod. It's the P, because pod was a pre-existing word. Why would an iPod be called an iPod?
Okay.
Well, then I think that's the etymology you need to look for.
Yes, if it would stop opening iTunes.
Okay, I got, why is iPod called iPod? How did the iPod get his
on
name?
demand.
Should we believe LifeWire, whoever they are?
I've got the Wiktionary claims that it is inspired by space shuttles in 2001: A Space Odyssey, and the quote, "Open the pod bay doors, Hal," is a combination of I, which denotes Apple products, and pod, suggesting a small place to keep things.
LifeWire agrees with you. I don't know who Chieko is, but freelance copywriter Vinny Chieko had been hired to work on naming the device and was trying out associations of the word hub, according to a number of articles on the topic. He thought about spaceships as hubs, which then led him to think about the smaller space shuttles in the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, which looked a bit more like the original iPod, I guess. Once 2001 was in mind, that led to the movie's famous quote, "Open the pod bay doors, Hal." I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that. So, Jen?
I'm still looking, because I was active in this as it was developing.
Jen is sticking by her hipster claim here.
Yes, because I still have the earliest episodes. You had to go to there, and it was delivered by RSS. It was, oh God, the iPod didn't come out for another like year or 2 after that. You had to go to we had the RSS feeds. It was already casted. You had to go and download it, and I'm looking for what the P is. Performance on demand.
Well, let's see. Did podcasts predate iPod?
They did.
I just want to say this delightful conversation that we're having here is if we're going to have millennial stereotypes on the show, this is a perfect one. We're here debating the etymology of a word for a device, and we're not just debating it, we're Googling it.
Yeah, but I was there. I want to say it was Smilecast was the one that I used to listen to. It was not August 2004.
MuggleCast. Those were my
not.
early on podcasts.
The first podcast was not published in August 2004. The iPod came out in 2001. I was in college. I was a freshman in college. 2004, I was graduating college.
Okay.
And I had a very different place to live. I can remember exactly where I was located. I was in my freshman dorm room downloading these. The internet doesn't want to give and as happens often, they don't want to give credit to the actual first person to do a thing. The
research for this has gone beyond my ability to actually perform it live on a show.
Yeah.
So.
No, I remember Adam's Smilecast was one of the first, and I remember the show that has now morphed into being called well, it doesn't exist anymore, but it morphed into being called This Week in Blackness, was also one of the first podcasts that was out there. And if my old device will still boot up, I can look in to see, because there were some other ones where they asked for audience feedback, and I took my little MP3 player, which had a recorder in it, and would record my feedback and then offload it onto my computer, send it in. It was a gentleman who was talking, and I can't remember who it was or what the topic was, but yeah. I did a lot of that in between classes as a freshman in college.
We talk about anything we want to.
Yeah.
We aim more or less at things that will be interesting to people. Okay, how do you like this, Jen? Although, this is one of your problems. I'm working on it. People who live in the triangle, a.k.a. triangularians.
Triangulation.
Maybe that's where I got triangularians from the word triangulation. I didn't deliberately do that. I gave myself some icons, by the way, in my title. It was feeling pretty bare. Triangulation. I think that my brain made that connection without even coming to the conscious level. AKA triangularians or something, because no one else has come up with another name for it other than people who live in the triangle.
It's because we're so different. Those of us in Chapel Hill and Durham are more similar than those of us in Raleigh and Cary. My mom and I had this discussion recently about mask use, grocery store attendance, and things like that. And she said she can't find Clorox wipes to save her soul out in Wake County. And I was like, well, we have plenty. Nobody's hoarding them here.
A short drive to Chapel Hill.
It's a very different mindset across the two spaces. Our food pantries have a different mindset across the two spaces. It's just a different mindset across the two spaces.
Whereas, down in Harnett County, everybody's already decided that this is just a government conspiracy and nobody wants to wear a mask anyways.
Yep.
Does that mean, because that's closer for my mom to get her Clorox wipes. Do they have them there?
Sometimes. You know what? I'll have to look, and if I see some, we can always drop some off for your mom.
She's had enough Lysol. Apparently, I may have mentioned it on a show that she needed Lysol, and enough of my friends heard it, and they've dropped enough Lysol at her door. She's now overwhelmed with bounty of that. She's now on Clorox wipes.
What's the difference?
The beauty of community care.
One is a spray that you take with you when you go vote, and you do it in other people's faces when they get too close. And the other one is a cloth, and you wipe it on people's faces when they get too close.
Okay. You're going to have trouble at the polls.
Either way, you may be running risk of, being charged with some sort of attacking with a chemical.
Yeah. You got my phone number? You can call me for bail.
Oh, I got enough friends who are lawyers.
Okay.
I'm ready to do test case litigation on whether or not that's self-defense.
Sometimes we're local. Sometimes we get a little broader. Sometimes we talk about absolute nonsense for almost an hour. We are unfair and unbalanced, and proudly so, on the left-leaning side of politics, except for Sarah, who is currently outnumbered 2-1. Usually it's 3-1, but she doesn't care.
I was going to say, but still, my odds are looking really good this week. Can we even say left-leaning?
Leaning, yes.
Yeah, that's true. I
would argue all of us are left of center.
I know, and pretty much everybody that's my friend in politics would probably argue that too.
Sarah's our token libertarian, our Schrodinger's cat of politics, and another meaningless phrase, meaningful if it means something to you. She provides poise, if not balance.
I like it.
When we get political, which we usually do at some point, haven't really yet so far today, but
wait till we get to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I have many things to say.
I was hoping so. Do not invite us to Thanksgiving dinner unless you want. Well,
my Thanksgiving dinners are very, very wonderful. I invite travelers to the U.S. who are strays and don't have a place to go because they didn't realize they were arriving on a holiday. I invite them to Thanksgiving dinner, and then they come and they just talk about how wrong America is compared to the country they came from, and nobody can really argue.
How crazy we are. Yeah. Website?
TriangleTalkShow.com. YouTube. Also Triangle Talk Show.
Facebook group?
Facebook Triangle Talk Show. Twitter and Periscope, not. But you don't use those anyway. They're garbage cans.
Yeah, and I think we
get taken down on Periscope.
We're working live on YouTube and Facebook right now, unless they took us down because of the EDM. But the Twitter didn't start up for some reason. I don't know why. And we're available on Jen's Podcatcher.
Yes, you're available anywhere that you already found us, because how are you paying attention to us to hear this? So when you tell your friends to tune in, tell them to tune in the way you tuned in, and then that just solves all their tech problems all at once, because they'll ask you for advice, not us for advice to help fix the problems.
Maybe your Android and your friend is iPod or iOS.
Well, then bring your friend over the good side. Yeah, see?
Say that again?
I said you need to bring your friend over to the good side. And Jen says you just need a different friend then.
The good side is Android?
It's whatever one you like. Since the two are roughly equivalent.
Them's fighting words.
I mean, they are roughly
only
equivalent.
to Apple people.
I'm not
I know. So my phone's Android. My only laptop that can do the virtual backgrounds is a MacBook. But honestly, behind the hood of Android is Linux, and behind the hood of whatever this is Linux. This same thing. Yeah. It's just what glossy stuff you want on top. You can get to terminal on both.
On with the show. Notorious P.O.D. What I've noticed is that most of the shows that I have observed, well, first of all, it's been interesting to watch or to listen to podcasts and shows that were produced before 6 p.m. Friday, but did not get released until afterwards. And many, many, many of them put on a little disclaimer at the beginning saying, God damn it, we recorded this before Ginsburg passed away or before we learned about it. And so this is the show, but please, don't send us nasty notes or Twittergrams, because we didn't know at the point we made this. At least we're sticking something on at the beginning. Some don't even do that. And then for the shows that especially the talk shows that were produced afterwards, they try to spend a little time on reflections of the life and all the things that came from the life of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but they don't get very far before they have to talk about what Trump is going to try to do about it. So
I'll start with Shana Tova. That's Happy New Year to all those in the Jewish faith. It is not, they were close to Rosh Hashanah. There, all of a sudden, Facebook started mulling. Maybe it's not 2020. Maybe it's the Hebrew year 5780. Maybe that's the bad year. No, Ruth Bader Ginsburg died after Rosh Hashanah started, so she died in 5781. It's 2020. 2020 is the year. It's not over, y'all. It's not over.
I think we shouldn't lie to ourselves and say that the struggle and the pain is limited temporarily. I think we're just going to live in this new reality.
But yes, the one, so I'm Jewish. Ruth Bader Ginsburg also, well, she was Jewish. Now she is not anymore. The one thing that I've been very intrigued by that I've seen is a lot of people approaching her death from a Christian theological standpoint and not understanding quite how Jews work. The massive amount of flowers I saw out in front of the Supreme Court are a little inappropriate for a Jewish death. We don't do flowers. Flowers are for life occasions like birth and marriage. Not death occasions are stones or rocks with a little more permanence.
Yeah, I would say that's not a well-known cultural.
Oh, no, because why would you know anything about Jews?
Okay.
No, it's just as a country, we are very Christian normalized. And so there's a lot, people have a passing fancy knowledge of Jews, same as they have a passing fancy knowledge of Hindus or Muslims, in that they may have learned about it sometime in 5th grade. And then they definitely know that Hanukkah happens, but they don't, these finer points like how to deal with Jewish mourning. are not something that's taught. And so the take home that I've done as, ye old ambassador of Judaism to the people that I can reach is, if it's a heartfelt expression of your own personal grief, you're fine. However, if you're trying to do it to comfort her remaining family, that's where you might want to find a Jew and ask them what's appropriate.
It's a good point. And I almost feel bad adding the snarky, yeah, but Jews control the media, so how come we don't know?
Nobody wants to listen to us about our own selves.
The message isn't out there.
Actually, I would have to say it's because of the whole idea that Jesus was Jewish. So if you're Christian, you automatically understand Jewish custom. It's not. And there's a distinct difference in between Christianity and Judaism, and things like, for example, the rest in peace phrase, respatio in pace, which please do not send messages about how bad my Italian or my Latin pronunciation is. I know it's bad. I know.
There's no Latin pronunciation. It's not a live language.
But it implies that even rest in power implies that there is some sort of continued existence of a person beyond the moment of death. Whereas even the Jews who believe in soul recycling, so your soul gets recycled and implanted to a new body, which some might say is the same thing as reincarnation, except we believe, even those folks who believe in soul recycling that are Jewish believe that the soul is wiped clean like a hard drive and then reinstalled, just to save on spiritual parts. It's not the same because it's wiped clean, but we believe that upon the moment of death you cease to be. There is no resting, there is no peace, there is no better place. You've done, honey.
So if you got something to do it now.
Yeah. The phrase of comfort is, may their memory be a blessing, or may their memory be an inspiration. That's the phrase of comfort.
I like that.
Yeah, we don't, also, fun related note, we don't have a heaven or a hell in the sense that there is any afterlife place for your soul, which has now been wiped clean like a blank hard drive to go. I guess every soul goes to heaven, but we don't have a specific heaven that any sort of being can enjoy. You just sort of go on to, I think the phrase that was used for me when I was a little kid is God's waiting table. Your hard drive soul gets plopped on the table and it waits until it gets installed in a new life.
But it's not you at that point.
Yeah, no. You done wiped out. You're done. But because we don't have a hell, when people come in and try and convert Jews, so specifically what those people are offering when they're like, join us so you don't go to hell, is like, you're offering us the opportunity to maybe go to hell, and that's not an upgrade.
Yeah. Like, I'm just going to take the zero existence and not have to have this eternal gamble.
Yeah. But yes, so if you want to comfort her family, rocks, specifically pebbles, you want something small because there are going to be a lot of people with rocks. So you want small so you don't take up her entire grave site. And by the way, if you're ever at a graveyard and you see a bunch of pebbles on gravestones, that's the Jewish equivalent of leaving flowers. So don't disturb those, please.
Yeah. They do that at Best Friends at the animal graveyard. It's probably not religious. It's just a custom.
Yeah, it's there. I believe soldiers at Arlington National Cemetery leave coins for a similar. But yeah, rocks for death, and may her memory be a blessing, or may her memory be an inspiration. And we do believe that if any bit of a person lives on, it lives on as inspirations or comfort or memories in those of us who are still living.
It's kind of like all the services that happen when someone dies, funeral and visitation and stuff like that. That's for the people who are still alive.
Mm-hmm. And we Jews have a mourner's Kaddish, and the mourner's Kaddish basically is a praise of our chosen deity to thank them for ever having let that person live.
Okay, and this is the start of a Jewish New Year.
Yes, yeah.
That year
Rosh Hashanah is technically not concluded yet, so I shouldn't be on this podcast. Shh, don't tell my mom or my rabbi. But yeah, at sundown, the New Year will be over, and we will enter the 8-day period, which has a Hebrew name, but I'm for the sake of the listening audience, I'm going to skip over that and just tell you what it is. It's a period of reflection and repentance where Jewish people will turn to those that they have interacted with in the past year and seek amends and forgiveness for any wrongs that they have done. Because again, this difference in theology between Jews and Christians. Jews do not believe that a deity can absolve us of the wrong that we have done to another human being. Only another human being, specifically the one we've wronged, may absolve us of that wrong.
Shall I be waiting for your call?
Well, I'll do it in a card. That's my tradition. We send out our New Year's cards like y'all send Christmas cards. But our New Year's cards say, like, Happy New Year. P.S. I'm sorry for all the hurt I've done.
I don't believe you've done me no wrong.
Yeah, but so that's there's just a little bit about.
What do you believe the wrong that she has done is then?
Say that again?
You said you don't believe that she has done you no wrong. What do you believe that she has wronged you in then?
She's got you on double negatives.
You're jumping on my colloquial double negative. So yes, no.
But
yes. No.
Jen, you have not wronged me in any way that I can recall.
Thank you. There's your context for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a proud Jewish woman up until the end. To that token, I have seen that she made some statements about, equating being a invisible minority, because Jews are generally invisible, but we are still nonetheless a minority, with being a visible minority, like somebody biracial or a person of color or Black or Indigenous. And so some people have taken that to be racist. And I think, because when I've heard it, I heard it in the context of I grew up in the Jewish community. I heard what she was doing was she was trying to reach out and say, I understand some of your struggles and I will fight for you, rather than trying to dismiss their struggle. She was trying to find a bit of common ground. I
didn't quite understand all that. Saying that Jews are an invisible minority, that's a racist thing to say? People have said?
She said that she understands what it's like to be a minority. Because she's an invisible, she was an invisible minority. And I think what she was trying to do was find a bit of common ground to extend a little bit of sympathy, to indicate that she is not just fighting because it looks good. She's fighting because she knows what it feels like to be on the receiving end of some discrimination, albeit not the same level of discrimination that somebody as a visible minority will experience for their entire lives.
Yeah, I think that's an example. The outrage over it, or the criticism, whether it reached outrage or not, is an example of getting a little too sensitive. He said, inviting brickbats to talk at triangletalkshow.com about me being a little too insensitive.
It's a case of, just like if you want to leave flowers because it's a heartfelt expression of your own grief, sometimes it's the thought that matters, the intention that matters a little more than the words that come out of it. But this part, Sarah will like. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was very much libertarian when it came to women's rights. She was,
because they're individual rights. It comes down to making sure that people aren't treated differently by the state. We have a great movie I want to say it was a 2018 movie version that goes through the landmark case that she helped to litigate in the Supreme Court. I recommend it to anybody who's not really all that familiar with her life's work. But
what's the movie?
To women's rights. It's called On the Basis of Sex.
Okay, yeah, I've definitely seen that.
Great movie.
So I'll do the difficult thing of me trying to actually think of a way to put this together properly. Sometimes I can do that easily, and this time it's not going to come easily. She was looking to not add to the body of law, but make the existing body of law work better. Is that the libertarian thing I'm trying to think of?
Well, she was trying to make it fairly applied. So the honestly, smart thing that she did in order to have those laws that were gender or sex discrimination in this case go in front of the court to be litigated was she actually found a case where there was a man who was being discriminated against, because working within the context that you have to, which is the reality that you're given, we can have ideas about how things should be, or, you know, the way that we want the law to be, but we have to focus on, okay, what's the world we're living in now? And what is the disparity that we can point out that people will pay attention to? And in this case, it was point out that, hey, these laws that are discriminating between men and women on the basis of nothing other than, you know, their physical bodies really does hurt men just as much. And that for that reason, it causes people to bring it up to question, why do we have those disparities in the first place, at least as far as the state goes. You know, you can have all sorts of social differences, because, you know, we do have differences between men and women. We have wonderful complementarianism that helps us to build up our society. But when it comes to interacting with the state, it's worth questioning, is there a reason that we need to look at a man or a woman differently when it comes to how the law is being applied?
Yeah, for those who don't know, the case was there was a surviving father. The mother had died in childbirth. There was a surviving father, and he was wanting to raise his infant. And as you know, maternity leave happens for what we call the fourth trimester, or the first 3 months of a child's life, sometimes longer, sometimes less long, although that shouldn't be. It is the time the child is most needy. And it is damn near impossible to meet the child's needs and hold down a full employment. So the father took leave of absence from his job at that time to give full care to his child, his only remaining family member. And in that process, he applied for benefits, for social safety net benefits, and was rebuffed and told that this is only for mothers, not for fathers. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg was like, I think it should be for any parent that's doing this by themselves. Thank you very much. And went and championed that case through, because, again, that was sex discrimination. They were like, well, because you have a penis, you don't need the financial assistance, even though you're doing the work of raising this little one.
Because we had in the system built in this bias that says, well, if somebody is going to be caring for a child, it's going to be a woman. So we would never even need to be able to consider that a man might be put in that situation. But when it comes to children, families are families. And the good thing is some of the most easily empathizing cases that are put in front of the court are those questions that really point out, hey, are we really caring about what is best for families and for children? Or do we have laws here that are actually getting in the way of people taking care of each other?
So would it be fair to say that it was smart to do a case of a man being discriminated against? Would it be fair to say that there are far, far, far more cases, examples of sex discrimination against women rather than against men?
Yes, but it's not a good look at the entirety of sex discrimination if we only look at sex discrimination against women. There are family law still biasly favors the invaginated. And they may not be the better parent.
You made up that word.
I wish I did, but they may not be the better parent in a heterosexual couple. They just simply may not. But family law still holds a bias for women. And then employment law still holds a bias for men. There are still biases in our system.
Well, and there are often things that are not intentional, but they still bear out in the way people experience things. Like you will see part of it is because we have the social expectation and in the legal protection that says mothers are given, a certain amount of time where their job is protected after work, but men are not. So men not only are not expected to take such time to support their families, but are not legally protected. So the impact of that plays out in their ability to earn income. But more than that, you even see when couples get married, it's not uncommon for men to receive a pay boost because of that social bias. They go, well, you're going to be a husband now. You have a family to support. And when you have a first child, employers may think, well, how is this going to impact a woman's ability to focus on her work? Whereas they may say, well, this is going to encourage a man to want to work harder, so he may need to be paid higher. They're not things that people are thinking consciously. It's not at the forefront of their mind, but they are legitimate concerns that are taken into account in business that disparately impacts the outcome overall.
And as a nanny, I can tell you that when I work in a family, not a single one of the parents is the one who's taking care of the child. They're both working very, very hard, and they both deserve to have that pay boost to cover, maybe no parent has because we got to be honest about our own inbuilt parenting skills. It's a skill, and you might not have it, and you might not want to devote the time to developing it when you could be continuing to work at your job, which you're really, really good at instead.
It is interesting to see this kind of shift more as within the millennial generation. It's becoming very common that the women are the primary breadwinner in a household. So when you get to the point where people decide to have children, you have to have a lot of really serious economic conversations, because the assumption that, well, the woman will probably stay home to take care of the children because she probably makes less anyways because of these pre-existing issues within our system. Well, now that's not necessarily the case. So you have to have a serious conversation about who has the predisposition towards parenting, who wants to be the primary caregiver, and what's economically making sense for the family. And so you get a whole lot of really great stay-at-home dads.
Yep. I've known a couple of them, and they're just fabulous. They are the kind of parent I wish my primary parenting caregiver had been for me. My family followed gender biases, and they went with my mom, which I love her. She is a great human being, but as a parent, she's like a C-. I would have much rather had, my dad, who was arguably, as parenting skills went, a better parent.
When you say that probably the woman, at least at some point, would be making less, that's also a result of gender discrimination.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's a long-acting result. It took a long time to get there. But
we're slowly but surely chipping away at it and fixing it. And that's part of, the remaining women on the Supreme Court, Sotomayor and Kagan. Kagan tends to be a little bit more moderate, but Sotomayor is a little bit more of a firebrand, and hopefully they will continue to go, oh, hey, we're not dudes. We're willing to work with this and help. Because that's the job of the judicial branch, is to evaluate law and say, is this right? Not just is this constitutional, but is this right? And hopefully they will continue to be the people who will look beyond their own life experience. Although it's really shitty that women have to do that, because we've spent our entire life looking beyond our whole life experience.
I think it's interesting that if we're going to talk about the legacy of Ruth Bader Ginsburg here, I really think the biggest impact that she's had culturally is she unashamedly questioned those assumed norms. I mean, one of my favorite quotes from her is when she was asked, when will there be enough women on the Supreme Court? And she famously said, when there are 9, because when there were 9 men, no one questioned it then. It's interesting that it presents us with having to confront that difference, because you say, well, there'll be enough when it's all women. We go, well, that doesn't sound fair at all. But if we're looking at, historically, well, if we're considering the vast majority of the court's history being 9 men, why would it be so unfair that if some point in history it did end up as 9 women?
What if, God forbid, it was 9 women because they were just the best there were to have?
Yeah, I hear that argument all the time against, diversity initiatives, is this idea of, well, you just want to hire the best person. Well, what happens if the best people are 9 women? Is that bad? We only seem to hear that argument made when it's just the best person for the job. It's not my fault that it ended up being,
a white man.
A white guy.
Yeah. Yeah, there was, I can't remember what people were complaining about. There was the football coach that was a black man, the head football coach that was a black man. People were like, why did they have to make a diversity hire? Why couldn't they have hired the best person for the job? And I was like, psst, he is the best person for the job.
Yeah.
Like, I see your bias. I see your bias in there that you're going to assume it's a diversity hire, not the best person. But he is the best person for the job.
And that is one of the hardest things that, you face in any sort of corporate environment, or any sort of environment where you have to consciously have conversations about diversity, is if you are not, that you're not that standard expectation of, it's sad to see how often people default to normal means, you're a college educated white guy And anything outside of that, it's this question of like, oh, well, what exception did we make to get you here? You know,
So
it's a frustrating bias to have to work against.
So there's a study that was done. I can't remember what study. My mom brought it up, so she would know, which said that initially when the entirety of the economic structure was all white men and slaves, but white men were the ones actually earning anything that they got to keep, that, you know, there was a spectrum. There were the ones who were really good at their jobs all the way down to the ones who were barely passable at their jobs, but like there wasn't anybody else. And as soon as you started adding everybody that wasn't a white man to that ladder, to that hierarchy, all of a sudden the ones who were barely passable got pushed further and further and further and further down, because they're falling behind women who are good at their jobs, and they're falling behind Black, Indigenous people of color who are good at their jobs, and they're falling behind everybody else who is good at the job. And instead of going, oh shit, this means that maybe I need to up my game and get better at my job, instead they went with like, I hate them, they've taken opportunity away from me.
It's very telling to see who doesn't really like meritocracy.
Yeah, I'll say, son, you were there by the grace of God to start with. Like, don't even complain.
So you probably wouldn't favor a plan that would advance women onto the Supreme Court, just deliberately to do that.
I don't need a vagina sitting in a chair that's going to be bad at their job.
Not really a fan of affirmative action, even if it, would theoretically benefit my gender. It still is trying to say, well, we need to change the expectations, which comes with the implication of lowering the bar. Now, what if I can reach a higher bar?
What I want to see is, and where I think affirmative action belongs, is not gatekeeping the women out of those early steps that then eventually lead to being a really good justice. Don't give it to me late stage. Give it to me early stage. You know, go in early and say, well, what is it that's turning girls? And I do mean girls like 7 years old. What is it that's turning girls off of, a judicial law, legal based career track? What's turning them off there? Maybe don't do that then.
That would be good to do now.
It's very much like we do with the STEM initiatives. We'll look at, okay, is there a disparity early on that leads to people not being interested here? So we don't just assume, well, this must be baked into biology. Maybe it's not. Maybe we are intervening somewhere and we can pay attention and come in early on and give people who may be very much skilled at this work the opportunity to do so.
Maybe we don't talk to opinionated girls and call them bossy and tell them to shut up.
Well, and if we're going to go science here, postmenopausal women are the most cognitively stable of any human being.
There was
we're talking like least influenced by emotions and just what's going on outside of the situation. Postmenopausal women is where it's at.
There was a great episode of The Big Bang Theory, one of the later seasons, I think, when the guys were supposed to go to some school and do a talk to women about getting into science fields. And I don't remember exactly the episode, but one of the guys, or maybe it was Penny, said, wait a minute, you're talking to college age women. You're starting way too late. You need to go to elementary school.
Yeah. I mean, because I used to teach in a high school, and the disparities in math grades for, say, our minority children, by the time they were out of 5th grade, was already huge. I mean, after that, we were playing catch up. Like, if those kids want to go to college, they need to know that they can do math in 1st grade.
And that's what a lot of it is just knowing that you can. I mean, there's amazing disparities that you can see in math scores with girls, essentially as they get to an age where they're told girls are bad at math. The more you learn that, the more you hear these messages that, oh, well, you're incapable, you can't do this. The more you start to believe it, even if you're, again, not conscious about it, you hear this over and over again, and you start to do worse because you don't really even believe that you can try.
So when I was little, and I will say that I have a math minor and a chem major, because you have to have that amount of math to support your major in chemistry. I wasn't discourageable in STEM. clearly, but I heard when I had some trouble, I heard, that's okay, you're a girl. You know, if I had trouble with a math problem or did something poorly, that's okay, you're a girl. Nobody actually said girls are bad at math. They just said, it's okay to be bad at math. You're a girl, it's fine.
What kind of people said that? Was it teachers, parents?
Teachers, yeah, because, you know, who else was around?
Yeah,
it was teachers. Like I didn't understand I didn't understand subtraction. I remember I was in first grade and a teacher came at me with a question of what is 6 minus 9? And I'd never, ever learned that subtraction had an order. Like, I was in first grade. You don't at that point. So I turned it into 9 minus 6 and I said 3. And they were like, that's okay, honey, you're a girl. And I remember going home and saying, like, what did I get wrong? Why was it wrong? And what the hell was the that's okay, you're a girl nonsense? And my parents then explained subtraction to me, which then, again, later in the school curriculum we got to, I was being given a diagnostic early on in the year to see if I placed, you know, which ability group in mathematics I was placing into. But I remembered that phrase and I said, like, that's what causes the chilling effect. And I've seen it with the kids I nanny for. One of the kids said they were learning about politics and, you know, they said, maybe I want to run for student or for class president. And then I had a discussion with them about, like, what is president versus what is student body council representative. And, like, I said, why president? She was like, I want to make the rules. I was like, then you don't want executive branch, you want legislative branch. But then she talked about it with some of her friends and they were like, we don't want a bossy girl in charge. And I was like, listen, she's an assertive young lady. It's not bossy. Like, let's not use those words here unless we're going to talk about bossy boys.
We've had a few years of being woke. Is it getting better?
Oh, I mean, we've come a long way. The classic example here is the year I was born, 1992. There was a famous Barbie put out. It was Teen Talk Barbie, who was able to say a bunch of different phrases. And one of the phrases that Barbie said was, math is hard.
Math is hard. I say this as somebody with a like minor in it. It's hard. It's not easy. You know what's easy? Breathing. We breathe. It happens. Math is hard. It requires cogitation in your brain. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it or that it's not fun.
You need a different example because here in the era of COVID-19, breathing is not always easy, unfortunately.
It's easier than multivariable calculus.
Easier for most of us.
He's got you there, Jen.
That's true. But it's like you can't say math is easy because that would be lying to kids also. You can just say math is enjoyable. Math is a puzzle.
You can say math
is a challenge.
You can say math is hard, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Math is hard, and do it.
Yeah.
Figure it out and accomplish something.
Math is hard, but girls are smart.
Math is hard, and therefore, when you solve that problem, you get to give yourself extra pats on the back because you did a hard thing while not actually having to move anywhere.
Yeah, math is hard for everybody, and gender has nothing to do with it.
Yep.
Maybe math is easy for a few. Really,
I would argue
math isn't that hard.
I
don't necessarily like
math.
Well, we're all talking at once. Nothing got out. Sarah.
That is the struggle of the podcast. I say, well, math is pretty easy for me, but that doesn't necessarily mean I like it.
Math is not easy for me, and I don't like it. Jen?
Stephen Hawking probably had an easy time in math.
Yeah.
But he had a really hard time in emotional regulation.
So, it says here in the show notes, are there any procedural steps Democrats, or anyone, I guess, can take to prevent or delay Trump and the Senate from confirming a new appointment before the election or before the inauguration, assuming they do something in lame duck? And I guess that presupposes that we should try to do something about it, or maybe it's just okay.
I'm over investing emotion in things like this. I don't have the spoons. I will say that, yes, Mitch McConnell is showing that he is not a principled man. A principled man would be somebody who is consistent about his values, and he
Did
is
we
not.
ever think he was? Did we ever?
Yeah,
was
yeah,
anybody ever
that's-
tricked
I mean,
into thinking that Mitch McConnell was this like?
The amount of emotional investment right now from people who I guess thought he was and are really surprised in this moment to learn that he is not.
Well,
He's not principled.
I remember when I learned that there wasn't a Santa Claus 2, and these things can be heartbreaking, even though we have to be introduced to reality.
I keep wondering how somebody who isn't principled keeps getting reelected. Like, what are you voting for? My God, a sheep is more predictable than this man. Like, wouldn't you vote for a sheep?
My goodness, no. You go and collect any sort of like voter data or any canvassing, and the thing you hear more often this year than any other time is, yeah, I'm voting for him, but I don't like him. You know, he's better than the other guy.
So you guys are talking about the Merrick Garland thing, and
Yes.
anybody when that was happening, did anybody expect that were the situation
Apparently
reversed?
Apparently people did. And the amount of people who are very upset about Mitch McConnell right now on the internet, and they're going, he's a hypocrite. Apparently there were people who, honest to God, expected the situation would be reversed, but would play out exactly in the reverse. Maybe not with Mitch McConnell at the helm, but even if with him at the helm, he would go, oh, well, this is the same as that time, so same rules apply here. Like, yes, there were a very large number of people who did.
We have a lot of very unreasonably high expectations of our government that we're just constantly having dashed, so that, you know, we have to recognize that it's made up of a whole bunch of, unfortunately, humans who are incredibly flawed and incredibly corrupted by power.
And
Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
And who have
Which is why we shouldn't give more of it to the government.
Yeah, people who have no trouble whatsoever swallowing a heaping double helping of hypocrisy and just walking past it.
Only when it benefits them.
Well, yeah.
That's the people who have no problem swallowing that heaping double helping. They're called unprincipled people.
Yeah.
Just in case you want a term for that, they're unprincipled. Now, this is usually an insult, but it's also an accurate description.
The Constitution does not require waiting until not filling a Supreme Court seat in a last year or a lame duck session. There's no laws that say you can't do it.
As a principled person, I had no problem with an appointment being made in Obama's lame duck period. And I have no problem with an appointment being made in Trump's lame duck period because I am principled. I understand that this is changing the rules to wait.
It wasn't about Obama's lame duck period. He had 11 months to go. He was far from lame duck. He couldn't run again because he was term limited out. But
we still oftentimes interpret the last 2 years of an 8-year term as a lame duck period.
Okay. I was thinking literally the after the election period. But, but you're right.
No, that's usually just for congressmen. But for executives, where you then have to actually be able to work with the legislature, we usually consider it to be the last half even of their final term in office.
Okay.
So as a principled person, I have no problem with late term appointments. I can't. Otherwise, I wouldn't be principled. And in which case, a sheep would be a better option than me because I'm unreliable. What are you going to count on with me?
And if we didn't want them to happen, then we should adjust the.
And the Constitution is a living document, and we can adjust the Constitution. We just too damn lazy, and we're like, that's a lot of work. It would take like effort to try and talk to people about things and like get some sort of consensus about it. Let's just not bother. Like, I'm a little over America's opinion on that too.
So, but people are going to continue to bring that part up. Is there anything that are there any procedural steps that can prevent or delay this appointment?
I'm sure the Democrats
not anymore.
Going to be exploring all of them.
But we already went with the nuclear option, so not really.
Yeah, but I was going to say, on the other hand, there is a non-procedural option, and that's called talk to the folks on the other side.
You know they're not going to do that.
I know. They could. They could reach some sort of consensus and go, hey, let's talk about decorum here.
Yep.
Ma'am, let's talk about how high your expectations in our government are once again.
So, Sarah, you mentioned the term nuclear option. Probably needs some explanation.
So getting rid of the filibuster. We dealt with this back with, was it when they were confirming Gorsuch or Kavanaugh? It was Gorsuch, wasn't it?
I believe it was Gorsuch.
So basically they can change the rules of the Senate chamber, and they got rid of the Senate filibuster, which would have allowed that was this very uniquely American politics thing where our senators and our congressmen, it's almost like the extreme sport
anymore.
I know, but it's kind of like the extreme sport of Congress, where they see how long that they can keep talking to keep you from voting.
Well, they got rid of the filibuster in the case of a Supreme Court nomination. It still exists for legislation.
I thought it was all the way gone.
No, just for a Supreme Court nominee.
And
did it.
And for U.S. court, district court candidates as
who would
well.
have ever seen that coming back and biting us in the ass?
Not me. It was the Democrats who did that.
I know. And I was like, what are you doing? Just swallow a Gorsuch and right now keep the filibuster. And they were like, no.
And
they
did that.
The nuclear option for a reason.
Yeah. And they did that because the Republican Senate was, or the Republicans were a minority in the Senate at that time, but using the filibuster, they kept blocking Obama's nominations. So, okay, how do you get rid of that? Well, you get rid of the filibuster, but that only works for you as long as you have the majority, and someday you're not going to have it. And well, here we are.
Possibly seen that things would bite us in the ass when we do short-term fixes for short-term gain.
Yeah.
By the way, am I scoring a couple of points for understanding a little bit of politics?
I think everybody's doing really great in this discussion.
Because I can easily get over my head on things like that. It seems to me like what we have is the need to convince 3 Republican senators to vote against this.
Honestly, I don't find that insurmountable. I think I think that we'll be able to find at least 3 more Republican senators who will commit to, not holding a vote, and that's what you'll need. They'll certainly get plenty of crap from the other Republicans, but most likely you'll target people who don't have to run for re-election, so they can say, well, here, I'm standing on principle.
Yeah. Romney won't care.
I think that's the selling point. The selling point is selling yourself as a principled person.
Yep.
There have already been 4 who said that they're gonna that they're not going to hear it, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I believe people about as far as I can throw them, and as a weakling, I can't throw them very far at all.
Yeah, and some of them were just saying they would not support it before the election, but they have not committed to the lame duck period.
But again,
the real lame duck period.
I think.
Well, I don't know. It could be even more contentious if they wait until after the election, and then we see whether or not he wins re-election. My God, could you imagine the fight of if he tries to appoint someone during the actual lame duck period?
I think the selling point here is just, are you a principled person? And then you can use that to convince your electorate why they should reelect you, because you're reliable and you are not replaceable by a sheep. Again, sheep are reliable. They eat grass and they poop. Like, if you're not principled, you're not better than a sheep. A sheep is more like, we know what the sheep is going to do. We don't know what you're going to do. You're a wild cannon, and that serves nobody.
Sarah, what are we going to do with Jen? She thinks politicians can be principled.
Well, I think we need that kind of optimism to keep us having hope in our system.
I think politicians can be principled. I think the problem is that
they start principled and then they become politicians.
Well, I was going to say, I think that again, like, there's something that's keeping women from ending up as justices. Maybe early on. I think there's something that's keeping the principled people from wanting to go into politics.
Well, a lot of it is at this point that there are some really sad studies that you can read about their surveys that they give college juniors and seniors about what they want to do with their careers. And you ask them about politics, particularly when they report they want to do something that will, influence change in their community and their world. They don't think about politics as the way to do that anymore. We have this idea of politics as where people go into to try to collect power and to try and exploit other people. It's not where people go to solve problems anymore. I mean, it's very interesting to see this shift to children, Gen Z really is what we're talking about here, say, you know what, we're not even bothering with politics. We're just going to go straight to focusing on market solutions or even nonprofit. But, ways that we can actually be the change rather than relying on our system to be that change. And the problem with that is now you actually only have people who are going in for nefarious means, who you end up with, candidates where you're just arguing, well, which one is the lesser of two evils? It's a self-perpetuating problem. It's not great. I'm not here for the optimism. I have no solutions.
It is interesting to the concept that people are going to other things rather than politics to try to make things better, because the ultimate point where you can make the biggest change is still going to be political. And if you think that that's never going to happen, and and principled people can't do anything by going there, well, we're in pretty big trouble, and maybe we are.
No, I think it depends on what change you're trying to make as to whether government is really the best place to do that.
I was taught early on, survive and subvert. And that is my version of change, survive and subvert. So you infiltrate a system, you become established in the system, and then you change it from the inside.
And that requires getting at least some people into elective office.
Yes, but the woman who taught me this method of overhauling a system, she called it survive and subvert, because you have to survive to get in, and then you can subvert. You don't try and subvert and then survive.
And so you get in fully intending to subvert, and
yes.
Instead you get subsumed.
All right, I just gotta say, as a libertarian, I have seen way too many young, enthusiastic libertarians who are going to go and join the Republican Party and change it from the inside, and that's never how it works.
Again, you have to be very, very strongly principled on this. And I think that a lot of people think they're principled, but they haven't been tested.
Do you get any examples of actual people that have been successful doing that over your lifetime, decade or so? Your lifetime is not a decade or so. Maybe the last decade.
Let's see. Who has survived and subverted?
It's telling that nobody.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah, she's pretty early on in the process. She can still get.
Yeah, I don't know if we're quite counting her as having survived.
Oh, I don't mean
or as even successfully subverted.
But she got in, she survived to get in, and now she's subverting from the inside. She's not being subsumed.
Yet.
Yeah, and her whole little crew, the whole crew that refused to make donor calls, but instead started to pump out legislation instead. Because usually in a freshman senator's term, or a freshman representative's term, what they do is they have to just make donor calls for re-election. They're asked to sit on their hands and just get re-elected one time before they do legislation. And they've gone in and they're doing legislation right now. There was one guy from Raleigh City Council. I didn't agree with his politics, but he definitely got onto the Raleigh City Council, and then he started pumping out a lot of rules about how tall your grass had to be and how many cars you're allowed to have in your driveway. He survived and subverted, not in a direction I wanted, but he did. There are a bunch of people who've entered the school systems and have survived and subverted their schools into a much better place for students. Let's see, who else? I'm thinking of examples from like local universities, because again, schools play such a huge role in anybody's upbringing. I can think of some clergy who've gone into, for example, churches and synagogues. They come in touting that they're going to be, Bible thumping conservatives, and they come in and then they subvert. And they start saying like, hey, we should do right by the entire community, which is not something that their particular religious institution had done before. They had been sort of myopically focused on, we care only for our own. It's out there. I know one group who tried to go in and change a rather radical group from the outside, and they mellowed it out a little bit, but it's still pretty radical. But that's survive and subvert. It's part of a two-way push, though, because survive and subvert has to have the outside influence as well. Like, we're working from the inside, we can't do it alone. We need the outside to be a good place too. But
as long as we're focusing this on Ruth Bader Ginsburg, there have been Supreme Court justices who did that, I guess.
Oh yes, did you see that? Even Gorsuch and what's his face, Mr. I Love Beer,
Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh. Yeah, there was a drinking game. Every time he said beer, you had to take a shot, right?
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
You wouldn't make it to the end of his confirmation hearings. Even Gorsuch and Kavanaugh survived, and then they subverted because they went and reaffirmed basic things like Roe versus Wade, which was very anti.
Yeah, it was a big letdown to all the conservatives who were like, yes, Kavanaugh's going to overturn Roe versus Wade. It's like, you haven't actually looked at any of his jurisprudence, have you?
Yeah, they survived and subverted on that, which is why I guess I'm not that upset about the possibility of another appointment like that. I mean, yes, they won't be as firebrand as Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and definitely not as embedded in the desire to change. But damn, Kavanaugh and Gorsuch haven't been, the devils that we have been led to believe they were. I find them very principled jurists who maybe disagree on certain things like what RBG and Scalia disagreed on, which was just, is it the wording of the law as written now, or was it the intent of the lawmakers, which is an academic debate, yes, but in the end, they're like, however, this crap was decided, therefore it stays. They're not overturning anything. They're not going to be activist jurists. So I'm okay with another non-activist jurist.
Yeah, but we don't know what we're going to get, and Trump is probably not okay with Kavanaugh at this point, and Gorsuch.
Trump could be replaced by a sheep. Also, Trump is a real wild card. By that I mean, from minute to minute, who knows what's up with that man. Strategy is not a thing that I think he is capable of.
Oh, I mean, I think he's capable. He just changes it a lot.
Is it
He's
still
got several
strategy if it
strategies.
changes all the time?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a difference between strategy and good strategy.
Okay, I'll go along with that. What I've never been able to figure out is Trump as big an idiot as he seems to be, or is he really super clever in playing all this stuff? It's sort of like when he told Woodward at the beginning of the year, yeah, he knows that the coronavirus was terrible. It's way worse than the flu, and they'll go on TV and tell people it's just the flu. I
think he's comfortable lying.
Yeah, but I mean, that's sort of an example of, being cagey about it beyond what we expected him to be.
No, I think he told a safety lie at the end because he realized he was going to be in trouble if he didn't come up with something that made him sound like he remembered something that he didn't pay attention to early on in his career. As somebody who has been around some pathological liar children, and I don't want to diagnose Trump, but he acts a lot like a pathological liar. What happens is you go, hey, Trump, this is going to be really important. Trump goes, well, that didn't show because of my virtual background, in one ear and out the other. And then he goes, it's just like the flu. And somebody goes, hey, we have the receipts that you were briefed that it was much stronger than the flu. And you're like, yeah, I totally knew that. I was just trying not to have a panic. Yes, that's
JK, guys, JK.
Yeah, but he was telling Woodward that he knew it was worse than the flu in February.
Yes, because that's when he remembered that.
Well, he had just learned it in January.
Yes, again, because that's when he remembered that.
But then he continued to go on with the, it's just the flu, it's going to be gone when it warms up.
He didn't start that until March.
Yeah.
I think he forgot.
Okay. To me,
you know what? Occam's razor here, right?
I think he's senile and he is not capable of strategy. And I say this not just based on Trump, the president, but I got into his early biography. And it seems that boy has had a processing disorder for a very long time.
Yeah.
He got sent to military school because he couldn't remember things.
in terms of not panicking, I think that the only entity that he was worried about panicking was the stock market. He didn't care about people.
I don't think that he even worried about who he was panicking. I think he sold it because he thought that was something that people would buy, and people did buy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think he thought far enough about who he was thinking about not panicking. I think that he was panicking because he'd forgot that he ever learned a thing. Because again, Trump got sent to military school in high school for lack of memory.
Well, and it's a perfect example of malice is not the simplest explanation. Ignorance is, or incompetence, and I don't mean that in like an undercutting way, but I think there's a lot of intention, regardless of where you're coming from. But politics is where we do it the worst. Is this idea of there must be intentional malice on the other side, because how could you possibly be so blatantly evil? Well, most people think that they're doing the right thing. And when they don't, it's because they forgot something, or they were misinformed, or they have very, very different value sets than we do. It's easier to just assume that he didn't know. He forgot. He maybe isn't the single most intelligent person in the country.
And again, he has a childhood history of being unable to retain information. Why would we think that that is different now that he's president? If the man couldn't retain information from age 0 to age 18, why are we expecting that age, whatever he is now, 70-something, he's able to retain information? This is the time when his brain is degenerating. He should less be able to retain information. But he got in a lot of trouble, and that imprints very deeply on a young mind. He got in a lot of trouble for not being able to retain information, like physical effects were done to him. He went to military school, and you tell me that they don't beat you if you don't remember stuff. So he, in his animal brain, he knows admitting not to remembering is how the pain happens. So he has to pick a different thing.
To just lie.
Yeah, it's a safety lie.
Okay.
It is a very common protective mechanism.
I will consider that as the operative, the actual way things are going. I don't know. Your principles, which would say so it's okay for the Republicans to nominate and appoint a conservative Supreme Court justice at this time, not outweighed by the severity of the consequences?
Everything always has consequences.
Oh, yeah. If you let the severity of the consequences weigh against your values, you don't really have principles at all.
Well, there's that end justifies the means thing.
I am not one of those fans. I believe that there's a way to get to the end without having to compromise your own principles.
And if the end requires unjust means, then it is not justified.
So if the end is we want this particular justice to take Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat, which I think that the Democrats probably have a short list of their own, what you do is you start campaigning for them. You convince enough of the other senators that this is the person. And then they're not going to vote for whoever Trump sends up until Trump sends up the right person.
Well, and there's a decent political argument that could even be made if they want to bother making it to the senators and even to the Trump administration, the people who are going to give him that short list. If he wants to essentially be able to deactivate the left on this issue, then go ahead and nominate a bland, moderate woman to serve on the Supreme Court, and there'll be very little fanfare over that. Yeah, put another Kagan on.
There is a woman that I don't remember her name, but has been shortlisted already for him. Is she even somewhat moderate? Do you know who I'm talking about?
I haven't looked at his nominees. Because I've been too busy trying to figure out who I want, who I would be okay with. And I think that the only person I can imagine to take Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat is somebody who comes from the same place as Ruth Bader Ginsburg did. Somebody who is truly trying to bring equality and privilege to all so that nobody's privileged because we all have it. And also somebody who, because I heard her and Scalia in their debates, and Scalia was what the words mean is what the law means, and Ginsburg was what the lawmakers intended is what the law means, never mind the words. Even though that is not where I fall on the jurisprudence of the issue, I think we need another one of them to bring balance to the court.
How about the words mean what I think they mean, not what people who died 200 years ago thought they meant?
So
That's slippery.
that was that was neither her nor Scalia. That's another point.
That's Pierce.
And I think that the Supreme Court, because the field of jurisprudence has not settled this issue, and this happens to be a field where I've had some exposure to the scholarship. I think that we need, and I can't remember the names that they give for them. The like what is written down is what the law means. Never mind if the lawmakers screwed up.
Originalists.
But the originalists were, I believe, what the words meant at the time is what it means.
Yeah,
Whereas
and textualists, which is what Gorsuch is claiming to be, is read the words.
There's the ones who basically try and read the intention of the lawmakers and say that counts as part of the law. And while I think that's wrong, I do think it deserves to be represented as a voice in the debate. So I think it's
textualism and originalism, I believe it is.
Yeah. And for the originalist, you got to go back to what the Federalist Papers, which were basically explanations
which are your major interpretive documents. Yeah.
But anyway, that was RBG. She was one of those who was trying to suss out what it was that the lawmakers intended to make as the law.
Yeah. And I actually.
But she wasn't an originalist because she did not then go, well, the lawmakers only wanted the people who counted as men to be white landowners. She said, she took it a little bit more liberally.
It's really, I really enjoy reading deep, in-depth originalist debates around these issues because, yes, you can say, okay, well, they only intended it to mean white men. But then you can also look in and say, well, actually, at the time, the way that they used men in this term, while it did only encompass white landowning men, that was their conceptualization of basically who was a full voting human. And our understanding of that and our interpretation of that has developed. So using that same word with the way it's intended, there's a debate that's had there. And you read this in jurisprudence debates where does that mean man as was encapsulated at the time or man as the idea that they were pushing forward at the time? Because the way that it was understood then, we've gone and we've added into our definition of, who are people essentially. And so if we're still interpreting those laws as, well, these are laws that are applying to all people, all men were created equal. Well, when we say men, we now also include that to mean men of any color, any race, any creed, and also women. But humankind. So that idea of, is it a living interpretation? It doesn't necessarily need to be, well, what would we mean if we were reading this now? It's how has this term, in the way it was originally intended, evolved with our continuing body of law? So that we can respect the original intent, but also be able to put it into a modern context.
I think that's sort of what I mean when I say I want it to mean what I think it means now.
But again, most of the laws that they're interpreting here are not the Constitution. They're interpreting a body of law put forward by Congress at some point that's just congressional and not constitutional. Yeah,
and most of the time we never hear about those because they don't rise to the level of national interest.
Yeah, that's it would. I want to make sure that perspective is maintained in the debate. Wrong though I believe it is, I do think it deserves its say.
When we hear in a confirmation hearing a nominee say things like, "I'm just going to call balls and strikes. I am going to interpret the law the way it was written. I'm going." I'm not going to put my political philosophy into it. Do we call bullshit? 100%.
A good jurist shouldn't put their political philosophy into it.
I mean, I think there's being aware of your political philosophy is one of the key things that you need to be able to do in order to determine that you can separate it from your interpretation. Nothing gets under my skin more than journalists who insist that they are unbiased. One of my favorite journalism sources annually has, they jokingly call it their annual bias acknowledging, where they acknowledge, like, here are my political beliefs, here are the things that may be influencing my writing, so that as much as I'm trying to be equal and fair, what's going into this, so that you are able to then balance your own media intake and not just rely on this guise of, well, everybody's just going to come at this unbiased. Knowing your biases is what you have to do in order to try and separate them from your decisions.
So how do we end up with essentially divided courts, fairly reliably divided courts, if they're not putting their biases into things? Heavy duty time.
Because the test case litigation nothing makes it to the Supreme Court that's not a gray area. And it does come down on terms of, like, the textualists who are saying, well, they wrote all men are created equal, so we're going to look up what men is defined as in the dictionary right now, because we're doing the law based on what the words are, not what the intention was, versus the people who were like, well, at the time, but what they meant by men was, the white landowners. So therefore, we got to go with the intention of the lawmakers. That tends to accurately predict who's going to end up on what side, because usually they're arguing over like 2 or 3 words in a sentence of a law somewhere. The interpretation of 2 or 3 words in a sentence of a law somewhere.
And I think that's where we lose most people who say, oh my God, I'm getting a headache. Get me out of here. So look at this. It's 6 o'clock. We don't have time to do justice to Boogaloo, do we? Or do we?
I have 5% battery left, so I'm going to go with no.
Yeah, no, we don't have time to do justice to that topic at the moment.
So, the Ruth Bader thing just kind of came up and took over all media. So,
may her memory be an inspiration to us all.
Yeah, maybe we'll be able to do this, do the Boogaloo thing next week. We will see. So I guess that's it. So somewhere, you're down by the coast, Sarah?
Yes, I am. I'm having myself a little escape at the moment.
Okay. Can you say approximately where?
Approximately Wilmington-ish area.
Okay. And close enough that you could dangle your feet in the water within 5 minutes?
Oh, not within 5 minutes, but it's not that bad of a drive.
Okay. Enjoy your time down there, and wear a mask and stay away from all those people. Oh, the thing that I stuck in the beginning of the show actually comes from something I wanted to play just a little bit. It lasts a minute, which may make it in Jen's battery life. This is for you millennials.
Yo, what up, Dogs? Paul Rudd here, actor and certified young person. A few days ago, I was talking on the iPhone with my homie, Governor Cuomo, and he's just going off about how us millennials need to wear masks because, get this, apparently a lot of COVID is transmitted by us millennials. No cap. So Cuomo's asked me, he's like, Paul, you gotta help.
I don't know what no cap means.
26? And I didn't correct him. So fam, let's real talk. Masks? They're totally beast. So slide that into your DMs and twitch it. Look at us. Hey, look at us.
Look at us. Who would have thought wearing masks would be a problem?
Not me.
So when I heard this, I remembered who Paul Rudd was because, Jen, you told me who Paul Rudd was.
Now that's
You said, well,
just wear a mask. I shouldn't have to
he's
make
the,
it fun. It's science. It's
not the
science.
Spider-Man guy, the Doom.
We gotta yeet this virus. Oi.
Now,
He's using a lot of Gen Z terminology there.
yeah, now I can't remember what, not Doom's, what was his character? Why can't I remember his character's name in the movie?
Because I can't remember his character's name.
Deathpool.
No, he is not Deadpool. That's
Deadpool.
Ryan
Not
Reynolds.
Deadpool.
Okay, so this guy is Ant-Man. All
This
right.
guy is Ant-Man.
I can't keep those two
Ryan
guys.
Reynolds is Deadpool.
Okay, so this is Paul Rudd, not Ryan. Okay, I got it. Anyway, so you millennials, wear a mask. And now we're done. Sarah's at the beach. Sarah Wagner, our token libertarian. You can't see it, but I added a couple of little things to your
There's a hedgehog.
title. Yeah, I put a hedgehog in there. And,
Hey, you know what? Fun fact, actually, the porcupine has officially been adopted as the mascot of the Libertarian Party. It was just unofficial before because we really like unofficial stuff.
But somehow they decided to go official with it.
We did. There was a vote and everything.
Okay. Damn, you're getting political. You're getting parliamentarian. Yeah. And I also added a couple little animal prints because you say with all your animals. So you got
That is a very important part.
Couple little footprints. And Jen, I got to take off the candidate for president, I guess.
Also at the beach, in my galleon.
Your accent has slowly disappeared throughout the show.
Also at the beach yard with my galleon, enjoying a belated talk like a pirate day lassie.
All right.
Was a candidate for president, missed a couple of filing deadlines, missed a filing deadline. Apparently they pulled me off. Pulled a bunch of other people off too, because I definitely, when Kanye registered, it was 30 something, 1,030 something.
So you weren't checking?
No. Why would I check? My work did its work. We're done now.
She's not an engaged candidate. Let's be clear on this. She is what we call a paper candidate.
I did it for why I did it, and I did it, and it did, and now we're done.
All right. I'm Gary Pierce. I am the Triangularian. I'll take that. This has been episode 112. Timing works, right? This is very much timing. I got that part right. September 20th, 2020. Notorious P.O.D. Over.
And
Out.